All right, we're nearly at the top, and personally, I feel that I don't want to come home and be angry at myself because I did a stupid decision. A good dear friend of mine taught me that once, so it feels great to turn around, and it's a good success. It feels great to go down, even though we didn't go all the way up, but it's how it is, you know? Sometimes you just can't go all the way up.
First turn, always a doozy. Oh yeah.
Filmmaker Bjarne Sale knows a lot about turning back and changing things up. In the clip you just heard, the ski mountaineer turns the camera on himself, high on Alaska's Pontoon Peak, to share some of the mountain wisdom which has kept him alive on some of the wildest, rowdiest, and most remote lines in the world. The wise friend he references in episode 9 of Cody Townsend's The 50 Project is the late Andreas Fransson. Along with J.P. Auclair, Fransson died on 12,000-foot Mount St. Lorenzo on the border of Chile and Argentina in 2014. Salen was there for the tragedy, and Fransson isn't the only close friend Salen's lost over the years. At 31, he's experienced more death in the mountains than most. In fact, if you didn't know his age, you'd think Bjarne was much older, not by how he looks, but by what he says. Skiing high-consequence lines in Chamonix, France nearly every day, all winter for half a decade can turn the young into the experienced in a hurry. And when you're recording it all on film, there's simply another level of complexity to no-fall situations. So it stands to reason that only a certain kind of mind could take this art form to this level. In this episode, we get behind the lens with arguably the greatest cinematographer of his generation. And thanks to the 50 Project, Salen's had ample opportunity to turn the camera on himself and reflect. This episode of the Backcountry podcast is brought to you by the Vermont Department of Tourism. Winter is here, and there are few places better for adventure than Vermont. Iconic ski areas, lift access side country, and of course, backcountry opportunities up and down the spine of the Green Mountains. And after a long day outside, cozy inns, craft beer, and farm-to-table dinners await. But things are not normal, and planning is key. There are steps you must take before you can travel to the state. While Vermont is open for business, visitors must quarantine for 14 days or 7 days with a negative COVID test. Planning is part of most ski vacations or weekends away, but this year planning is imperative to keep yourself and Vermonters safe. At resorts, lifts and lodges have limited capacity and some are requiring reservations for parking. Many hotels, inns, and restaurants are operating with limitations in place as well, so knowing the rules before you go is key. Again, Vermont is open for business and ready to offer you world-class winter experiences and adventures. It will just take a little extra planning this year to do it right and help us all stop the spread of COVID-19. Check out vermontvacation.com for the most up-to-date travel restrictions. Well, Bjarne, welcome to the Backcountry podcast. Most people in North America probably don't know you, even though they know your work. You're behind the lens. That's what you've done for your career, and this has changed a little bit with your most recent project that I think has a lot of popular interest, which is the 50 with Cody Townsend. Tell me how you came to not only be behind the lens but in front of the lens in some of those episodes.
Well, I started filming for many years ago. I think I started filming for 11 years ago, and then I just starting to shoot my friends up in the mountains and just hold the camera and basically showed everyone what everyone else are doing in the mountains. And the more years, a couple of years after that, as people started to be like, but who's holding the camera? And I didn't really think about it. And then a few years after that, people are like, we really want to see what's going on, because those athletes are not up there on their own. There's actually someone holding the camera. Like, who's that? And I typically don't want to like film myself, really. I really like to see other people's story and to film what other people can do. But it became such a big question that the more and more I started to shoot, the more people really wanted to see like how do you do that, because there is someone out there filming, basically. And I think it adds so much to the story as well, to like show a tiny bit of who's holding the camera. Like if I watch a film and there are two people climbing a mountain, yeah, that's rad, but someone is shooting it, so you're missing part of it. I want to know that as an audience. And I think that's kind of what Cody and I have developed a little bit more and more to just I'm just a tiny side character, but it adds a lot to the story by showing that, and a lot of people love to watch that. So it's always fun to like share some of that, I think.
Well, and I know that I mentioned this in my email to you, but for someone on the creative side, to get a little inside scoop as to who's doing the work is really cool. And of course, those of us that have followed, outdoor cinematography over the years, folks like Jimmy Chin, that these guys are as badass as the subjects they're filming, because otherwise they couldn't get there. So I think that's the interest, right? Is not, and to me it's like next level. Not only are you there, but you're lugging all this crap around. Was it hard for you to kind of get out in front of the lens at first? I mean, it seems pretty comfortable for you now, just to hear you talk about it, but were you a little shy about it? I mean, obviously you didn't pursue the professional athlete track for a reason, right? And here you are.
I think most people are not comfortable in front of the camera the first time. And for me, I guess it was maybe a little bit easier because I've been seeing so many other people, like how they react in front of the camera. But of course, I need a lot of practice too, and like everyone, in the start, when you're in front of the camera, it doesn't matter if you've been behind the camera, and you're still like, oh wow, all right, someone's actually seeing what I'm doing now, like I guess I'm getting more used to it. But of course, I'm always a little bit nervous when you're in front of the camera. I'm just used to like be behind the camera and like tell everyone else what to do and just listen to other people, and then I'm in front of it, which is kind of weird, I guess. But
well, let's throw it back a little bit to when you first picked up a camera. You grew up in Sweden on an island in a pretty rural part of the country, as I understand it. You ended up in Chamonix. Why don't you take us through that a little bit? How did you end up in Cham, and how did you end up with a camera?
So where I grew up in Sweden, the skiing is not that great, to be honest, in the southern part. Like if you're from the north, then you have a lot of snow, and you learn to ski on ice.
Like Ora?
Because it's so hard. Like in Ora, like a lot of good freeride world tour people that are from the north of Sweden, they're really good because they learn to ski on shit snow. And that makes you be a really, really good skier. If you ski powder all the time, it's like, sure, you know how to ski powder, but you don't know how to ski like difficult terrain. So if you are from the north of Sweden, that's where it's at. I'm from the south. We didn't go skiing that much when I was a kid. When I was after high school, I went down to Chamonix in France because I wanted to be a ski bum for a couple of winters. And my brother was living together with Andreas Fransson in a little tiny apartment. Like I'm talking tiny, like a little studio. It's a lot to live two people there. And they were like, hey, Bjarne, why don't you come and live with us? I moved in with them. My brother and I shared a bunk bed, and Andreas had like a little sofa bed. So it looked like a sports shop in there because there was ropes and axes everywhere. I just skied with my friends, for fun. And I got to go to these places where maybe many other skiers don't go their first couple of years in Chamonix because it's kind of intimidating. But Andreas and Morgan showed me a lot and taught me a lot. And I just started to I should just take some pictures and then film just for fun. Then I started filming Andreas and some other friends, did short videos about it, not to get paid, like just for fun. And then I just realized that, oh, wow, all these people are watching these films, and these skiers and climbers, sponsors are contacting me about content. And I'm like, hold on, I just did this for fun. And now I realized that this could actually be something. And then I just put all my time and the little savings I had to like buy a camera and computer and kind of go for it. And I was like, well, in the worst case, I can, I don't know, go up to Norway and rinse some fish if it goes bad, to get some money back. But that's kind of how I started. And then it just took, one step after the other after that into the filming world.
What were you doing to support yourself in Chamonix when you were first there and shooting just for fun?
So I've been working as a whitewater kayak instructor for many years in Sweden in the summers. So I worked a lot in the summer and just saved up money. And then my first winter in Chamonix, I actually worked in a bar, and I was glass collecting, just picking up empty glasses where people drank so much, and I just worked 16 hours a week just to like pay some tiny bills, and basically plus minus zero, in the end of the season. And I learned how to live very smart without spending lots of money, and just skiing. So that's pretty much what I did. And then I started to get some income from the filming, and then that took over basically pretty kind of straight away.
So it was kind of happenstance that your path crossed with Andreas Fransson's path. You met him through your brother. They were living together. And it just so happened that at the time he was one of the most amazing free ski mountaineers, if you want to call him that, in the world, doing some incredible stuff. Certainly we wrote about him. You've met Tyler from Backcountry. He was over there several years ago to do a story. It was probably 2013 now. He was over there and did a story on Andreas. How much of that, how far along was his career when you met him? Was he that famous, or did you kind of come up together?
So in terms of famous, that's another subject, I guess. But the cool thing with Andreas was that he did things in what I call the correct way compared to how many people actually do nowadays. Sometimes I feel he got his knowledge and he worked super hard without really telling people. He was just putting himself and get the knowledge. He was building this foundation of a professional skier before trying to get sponsors, basically. So when he started to get sponsors, like a few years before I came down to Chamonix, he was already so far up in terms of how good he was. So it went pretty quick for him to go from, who is this Swedish skier who goes to Chamonix and skiing all these lines that people never ski, until being like world known. Went pretty quick because he was so good at it when he like entered the world of being a professional skier, if you know what I mean. Like, and nowadays I feel some people are trying to get sponsors and doing this and this and this, and they are really good at it, but they're missing that part that takes like a lifetime to build up, and that is to like be really good at what they do, so he did that part for so many years, and then he like entered into these brands and started a business, etc., with himself as the brand. So that's why it kind of exploded, like in a good way, when he started that, because he already had that mountain of knowledge behind him.
And he was quite a personality too. I mean, he was larger than life. Tell us a little bit about him, the individual.
A very deep person, and he was always looking into your eyes and listening, and you could talk to him about a lot of things. In my eyes, he was like, sure, he was like a professional skier, mountaineer and all that, but he was like a philosopher many times, having deep conversations with people. And that was one of his really good things he was very, very good at. Many people didn't understand him sometimes because he was on a deeper level than the people he talked to sometimes. But when they do understand, then it's pretty powerful. So we had like long conversations about life and that, and personalities and dreams and that, and the world, and pretty interesting conversations. So he was a lot like that, which was amazing. And then extremely motivated, of course, like all the really good athletes out in the world now. They are so motivated, and that's impressive. And that's the same with, I'd say, most successful athletes.
Right. So would you call him an intellectual?
He was super smart in many ways, yes. Like, I still go back to conversations we had like 10 years ago and be like, oh, damn, that was so cool. Now I get it.
So he passed away in 2014. And I know that was difficult, of course, for you. And it really kind of changed your path. In some ways, as I understand it, it led you to come over to the U.S. Is that at all a fair assessment? Or, I mean,
That was not the reason why I came over to the US. I think during my first 5 years in Chamonix, personally, I mean, the things we skied that I personally skied there are lines that nowadays I just do like a handful of times a year. But then we did it like I did it once or twice a week, and it became like this normal. It became this normal everyday life kind of thing. But then after like 5 years in Chamonix, I'm like, oh wow, I have had so many friends dying, and I had so many friends that are here, but nearly not here. And myself, I had many close calls as well. And I kind of, and then when they happened, the accident with Andreas and JP, I also felt like I want to do this, but I don't want to like do it every Monday and Thursday kind of thing. It was quite a lot. Some people do it and they handle it, and thumbs up to them. But personally, it became a little bit too much, I'd say. So
see, yeah, and when you're in Chamonix and in that place, looking up all around, you're not only going out in it, but it's like you can't escape it, right? You're there all the time. Is that kind of what you're saying? Whereas where you live now, you can kind of, you go cherry pick it and then come back and then.
yeah, I think so. And in my early 20s, I was more motivated, I'd say, because that's the only thing I wanted to do. But the older I get, the more other things I want to do too, and not just go skiing and climbing mountains and live in Chamonix and talk to everyone about skiing and climbing and all the time this and that. It got kind of too much. Like sometimes I even remember in Chamonix, I always like to have friends over for dinner, and I love to cook food, and I invite people, and like 10 people, and there's just one rule tonight. It's like no talking about skiing or climbing or mountains. All right, let's have a dinner. And people kind of like it because it becomes like too much nearly. I mean, in one way it's amazing, but it became a little bit too much for me as well. The community in Chamonix is like great, and it's a lot of amazing people there, but I needed a break from it. There was a lot of darkness. I had too many friends dying in Chamonix and outside. I needed a break from that valley for sure, in different ways.
So you ended up out in Hood, yeah? How did you why there? Why did you end up there? And tell us about that transition.
Well, I haven't lived in Hood River or in the Portland area that long. Before this, I lived in Mount Shasta, California. And before that, I was in Hawaii for some time and did a surf film, and lived in Northern California before that. So I moved around a lot. But I was in Mount Shasta, which is a great area, and I love it in many ways. But it was a little bit too small for me. The community there and the friends I still have from that area, they are like amazing. They are really, really nice people. But I felt like, I think I need a little bit more. I can't do any local work in Shasta. I would love to be somewhere else. And I actually asked like 5-6 friends in the US randomly, like, well, they are friends, but I just asked them, where do you think I should move? I want to have this and this and this. And everyone said, top 3. And they all had different locations in mind, except there was one place that everyone mentioned, and that was Hood River / Portland area in Oregon. And I was like, all right, thanks, friends. And I basically moved on my own to this area to try this. And I really like it here. It's great in many ways. So that's kind of how I ended up here.
Let's talk about what you're working on today. I mean, the 50 is really front of mind for a lot of skiers. It's a great project because it's, it could stretch on for many years. How much of your winter is dedicated to that project over the last couple seasons?
The first year we started mid-January to basically mid-June. That's when Cody and I kind of filming. I'm gone like maybe 3 weeks each month during that period of time. Sometimes it's only 2 weeks, sometimes it's 5 weeks on the road. But something that people maybe forget as well is that, like, you got to train a lot, and that takes a lot of time. So I feel the season already started. So because I started to train and trying to keep up with athletes, which I have to do other work as well to get other kind of income, you know. So it takes a lot of effort, but it's worth it. It's fun, and so it basically starts now until like until the summer. This year it's going to be a little bit different because we have 20 lines out of 30 left. So those lines, ski lines, are typically spring condition, you know. Those lines are more like spring lines, meaning that they are more in condition in the spring than early winter. So this year we're going to start in like mid-February and then end in like maybe mid-June or something. And this is going to be like our third winter in a row.
Wow. What's next on your list? Or do you share those types of details?
I'm definitely happy to share them, but I don't have an answer because we will actually see. It's like, it mainly depends on the conditions. It's impossible to say right now. Normally we look and then we decide a few days before, and then we go there, or a week before and then we go there. So right now I have no idea when exactly we're going to start or where we're going to go. I know it's somewhere in this continent called North America. That's what I know.
Right. So that must be fascinating, to just the process of like, okay, we have 25, 30 lines left. They're all condition dependent, of course. Are you guys like tracking the pack in every one of these zones and talking to locals on what's in, what's not all the time? I know that's a lot on Cody, but what's that process like?
Cody's doing a lot of that work, and it takes a lot of time, and Cody has so many contacts left and right over all North America. And I'm not saying that we have like 20 lines, the 20 peaks that are left. We don't have them in different zones. Like maybe 5 of them are in the same area and 2 of them are in the same area. So right now it's getting harder because there are only a few left basically all over the place. So we can't choose that many in that many regions, if you know what I mean.
I do. So, you've lost your economy has changed.
Basically,
your mountain economy has changed.
Now it's less to choose off. But Cody's doing a lot of that work, which is amazing, and he does a lot of other work around the project too. And but that's basically how it works. Contact all the locals, see how the conditions are, and see what works best for our schedule, and talk to someone who's been out in that area, exactly that area, and get our knowledge before we go there.
Right. And of course, Canada's probably off the list for a while. That kind of limits those select shots, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, who knows what's going to happen, if the border is going to be open in a week or in a year. Don't have an answer on that. So we have to be creative with what we can do, and I think it's going to work out anyway. You know, I'd love to go up to Canada sooner than later. I know when we couldn't go this year in the end of the winter, when it was all shut down, they had like the best snow conditions in so long, and we were like, oh well, you gotta wait.
Yeah. So you're shooting it. Are you doing all the editing and everything, soup to nuts, or do you have resources at your disposal on the production side? How does that all look?
So I've been editing a lot of my own films in the past for many years, and it's a fun process as well because you get to like see what you've been filming and you can see all that. But this project, it doesn't really work because it would take too much of my time and basically just not be possible. So there are other companies that we are hiring that are doing all the editing. So I'm filming everything and putting it on, logging it, putting it on hard drives and backups, etc. And then either we see these companies in person and give them a hard drive, for example, or we ship it to them and they edit it for us while we are on the road. And then Cody and I kind of give feedback to them about the episodes until it's like done. And then Cody's dealing with all the marketing and uploading and doing all that kind of stuff to get it online.
Well, I'd like to ask you about like what other projects you have going when, because this obviously, I mean, you're talking about potentially this is 6 months of your year plus all the training you do for it and so on. Is that everything you're up to, or do you have other projects going as well?
I have other projects going on as well. But during the winter, when I'm on the road with Cody, that's 100% everything I'm doing. I don't really have time to do other things on the side. I've been working on a film project in Nepal for many, many years now. Not many, but maybe 4 years now. I've been there many times. It's probably my biggest documentary I ever done. It's about the first Nepali female rafting and kayaking guides. And their story is just incredible. Like, that's why I'm doing that project. But it's more of a passion project. So with passion projects, it comes a lot of time and not so much budget, etc. So that's kind of on hold right now. But I'm having an editor in New York City who's working on it, and he want to help out. And he's like an award-winning like Emmy editor. So like I really want him to like work on it, but to find his time to do this is not easy when he's in the Hollywood world. So I'm doing that on the side, but actually I started to convert vans. So I've been building, I'm on my third van right now that I'm building, and I'm doing that every year now. So that's becoming more and more busy, and I might actually start a business out of it. So next year, to be honest, so in the fall, like a side business. It's fun, and it's great to see people get after it when they can use my vans.
So tell me about these vans. Are they like new conversion vans, sprinters that you're just retrofitting for touring, or is it old school? And you're talking to a guy with a 1971 Volkswagen Westphalia, so I really appreciate this stuff.
It's like I'm such a geek on it as well, so I can like have a podcast just about vans as well. So, but right now it's a cargo van, 2018 Ram ProMaster with front wheel drive, which actually works very well in the snow, and is empty when I buy it, and then I basically do everything inside it, insulation and paneling and cabinets, and there are like refrigerators and wood stove burning in there, and it's a lot of different things in there going on. Electrical system to charge everything, etc. So that's what I'm working on right now. Then we'll see what kind of van we will do next year. Who knows what will happen, but.
So do you buy these shells and build them out and then sell them, or do you have a customer in mind to begin with?
Well, the last 3 years I've just been, buying them on my own, building them, using them a year, and then I've been selling them. But this one is like so nice, I might keep it forever, to be honest, because it's going to be pretty fancy and nice, to be honest. But I got like several people contacting me like, oh, can you do our van? We have this and this budget. And I'm like, right now I don't have time, but probably in the fall, so I probably take up some custom orders from everywhere in the US. A friend of mine, he's a good carpenter, so we're probably gonna start something together here soon. So
we need to book some time in 2023 with you if we want to get our van squared away.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, if the 50 project goes on for another couple of winters, I'm not gonna have time to build anything in the winter, but end of summer, fall, I have like 4 or 5 months. I can probably do like a couple of vans then. So
right. Well, let's take it back to the mountains. I wanna ask you about your brother. You moved to Chamonix. He was there. You move in with him. He's a mountain guide. Tell me about your relationship. We published this photo of you two as little kids in this story that we just did when you're wearing like a race bib. It looked like you were doing some sort of running race. Have you guys always been tight from when you were just very little, or?
I think my brother and I always been pretty close to each other. He is a year and a half older than me, so I just been tagging along all his friends, and we've been in the same soccer team and all different sports together a lot. So yeah, I'd say we've been very close together, and even more so living together when we're adults. Um, that becomes even more, and it's hard to be on this side of the world sometimes when him and the rest of the family is like back home. But yeah, he's a great dude, and I love him and miss him so much. And he's a professional mountain guide in Europe, which is very different. Many people actually don't know that in the States. It's like to be a ski guide in the US, you don't have to do that much education actually. But if you're gonna do any guiding, like in Chamonix, France, you gotta be an international certified mountain guide, and that takes like between 4 and 7 years to get to that level. Because if you don't have it, you're not allowed to guide there. So it's more of a big profession, I'd say, to do that. But right now, he also changing his path a little bit. So he's in med school in Sweden right now. So
Really?
he's going to do that for some time. And I mean, all the education and everything is free in Sweden, right? So it's
So why not
he's going to do
become a
that. Why
doctor?
not?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
How long's it been since you've seen Morgan?
Last time I saw Morgan was like a little bit more than a year ago when I was visiting Sweden, my last time.
Yeah. Will that be one of the first things you do once we get out of this COVID reality? Is get back over there and visit your family? Or
Oh, heck yeah. I'm gonna
yeah.
go there straight away. I'm going in the summer. My sister is getting married, and I gotta see the whole family and everyone back home. So I'm gonna be home for probably a month or two, I'd say, end of next summer.
As I was preparing for this, I was thinking about, like, I never met Andreas, but I've met Cody, and he's just this very gregarious kind of. I don't know if I'd call him a teddy bear, but there's something very lovable about him. And it sounds like, from what you tell me about Andreas and what I've read, is he was quite a different guy, personality wise, than someone like a Cody. Cody's a sharp tack as well. He's witty and very bright from every time I've spoken with him. Do you ever find yourself comparing these two guys when you're in the mountains? Because the other thing with Cody that's different than Andreas is he's a guy that came from the free ride side, really didn't pick up touring until late in his career, if you will, pro skiing career. Certainly he has the skiing chops, but he's also super fit, charges hard. Do you ever find yourself comparing those two guys or thinking about that?
I think both of them are like great human beings, but they are very different in personality and very different in what mountains they are doing too. So I don't compare them because I don't see there's any reason to do that. They both have their pros and cons, like we all human does, and I think that from what we are doing, it works great. It's very different type of ski mountaineering Cody and I are doing than Andreas and I did.
How is it different?
The things Andreas had his eyes on were bigger and steeper and more dangerous as well, more consequences. But he spent his entire life doing ski mountaineering, so uh, it came from a different background. You when you've been doing that for your entire life, you automatically also look at objective in with a different mind.
Right. It's so interesting to hear you say this, because I think most folks that are familiar with the 50 would think, like, what? There's stuff that's more dangerous and crazy than what these guys are doing here. How do you when you run into somebody like that, how do you explain the difference?
I mean, I got to be careful because I can't be 100% just like say exactly, because they might think, oh, who the heck is Bjarne coming from Europe think he is someone? So, to be honest, it's like, it's difficult to explain because the things I did with Andreas, they were like very different kind of mountain adventures than the 50 project. Like if you look at the lines and peaks I skied with Andreas and other skiers in Europe and other places in the world, they have much more consequences than the 50 project. I like the 50 project because the mountains are not that as big, and they are not as steep, and they are actually easier than many other things I did in the past. And I need to be careful when I say that so people don't misunderstand me, if you know what I mean, because they can be like, who are you? so it's like, it's good it's a podcast, at least, so I can like explain it in an okay way. And I hope I did explain it for you as well. And if this, like 10 years ago, my ski objective I was looking at was way more bigger and steeper and also more exposed, which means more danger. And I don't look at them as much anymore. If the 50 project had a lot of those lines in it, we just have like max a handful of them in all those 50 peaks. But if it was like 40 of them that were on that level, I would not be interested in doing this project.
So that level of consequences is something you're glad to have behind you.
I wouldn't say behind me, but I would say I'm not choosing to go there that often anymore.
Yeah, so that you've reduced your volume of high consequence lines as you've gotten wiser. As you've gotten wiser.
I have reduced them, yes.
Yeah. How old are you now?
How old am I?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I 31.
I don't know that we published your age in this story that Megan Michelson did so well for us, but you've lived a lot in your 31 years, you know. And as I think about the scope of your work and the volume of your work, it's kind of staggering, really. Is it just because you were so focused and this is all you were doing? Or, I mean, how do you get so much done and at such a high level?
I mean, I don't know what to answer on that, really, but I would say there are many different kind of levels people are doing things, and I always been interested of doing something and then do it full on and not just like touch on a subject. I'd like to go big or go home, basically. And that when it comes to filming or skiing or van building or relationships or traveling or learning new things, I'm really into like going all in, and I'm not doing it for anyone else. I don't want to like, I'm not the person who's like showing off I've done this and that sport and that mountain. Like, to be honest, I don't even remember the peaks, the names. I don't care that much. But it kind of sounds interesting maybe, but I don't know. I just like to dive into whatever subject I have in front of me, and if I want to do it, I make sure I learn as much as I can.
Right. It's interesting that you say you don't remember the names of the peaks and so on. I'll go do a story in some exotic place or whatever, and I write it all down, and I'll write a story about it, and then I will really literally struggle to remember all of those details. You know, I'll remember the experience, what the snow felt like, who the folks were on my trip, etc. But it's very visceral, and it's all those details that you end up as a creator gathering and then sharing. You kind of let them go a little bit. Is it the same for you with the filmmaking of it? I mean, you're gathering all that material while you're out there.
Yeah, I think what you explained, I can actually feel myself in that situation many times. When I remember every place we've been at, every picture from that place, and pretty much all the footage. When I see a shot from somewhere, I can say, I know exactly where it is and what we did, etc. But when it comes to like a name of a place or like, no, I don't know these names, but I do remember the feeling and every little rock on the way up, and the steepness, and what was dangerous, what was not dangerous, who were in the crew, and what was the vibe, the feeling, etc. So
cool. So I'm not alone, nor are you. So tell me, you know, you're working on this project about the Nepali women guides, raft guides. When do you hope that we'll be able to see that?
It's going to be finished when I feel it's 100% done, which I don't have a timeline on right now. We will see when that's going to be finished, because it deserves the time it deserves. It's one of those stories that I'm not gonna put out in the world before it's 100% done. So we will see. You gotta keep your eyes open for that then.
Do you have all your footage for that, or is it just a production issue at this point?
At the moment, I have all the footage for it. If there are anything that's, we might need something, I'm sure it's easy to get that, because all the women in Nepal, they are my good friends. And if there is any interview or something that we feel like we need to do, it's possible to like do some pickup shots on that if necessarily. But at the moment, it's more of a big thing for the editor to put together, and myself, and looking for funding for this is not very easy, especially not during this time. I mean, if we had funding, the film would already be out there, but it's not always easy because all these brands, now is different than like 5 years ago. Now people starting to see like, oh, even though these women are not our athletes, the story is actually good. So maybe we can see if we can do some marketing here and give some money to this filming project. And I think that's kind of good. It's changing like that in the filming world, I feel, especially in the outdoor. But I heard many times when I asked for funding for this, sorry, it's a good project, but they're not our athletes.
Right. They don't
brands.
have they don't have our jackets on and our skis on and so on.
Yeah, exactly. So, but now it's a little bit different. And this film has like more potential as well. Like this film is not just for like some outdoor film festivals, it's like a bigger, more story depth film, a documentary feature film that's going to be screened on other platforms as well. That's the potential many people have been telling me that this film has. So
yeah. So you've got your short-term plans, which include, plugging away at the 50 project and building vans when you're not doing that. And then you've got your ongoing project, which is this story you were just sharing with us. What's next? Are you going to become a doctor like your brother, or what are you going to do? What's next for you?
I mean, if the education was for free in the US, sure. No, I'm not sure. Actually, it's a good question. And I do have some other kind of dreams and plans for the future, but I'm not going to share them with you right now. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
Because I do believe that sharing dreams before you even like started them loses its value, and the power of the dreams are not as powerful if you share them too much. So that's why.
Well, we will try to dream about what your dreams are and really look forward to following them, because the good news about what you do is you share it with everybody eventually, which I think is a wonderful gift. And it's a real pleasure to talk to you and hear about your stories and how they are made. And I can't wait for the next project.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's been nice chatting with you too. And I'm always happy to share some good stories.
Right on. This episode was brought to you by the Vermont Department of Tourism, reminding you to check and observe the latest travel restrictions at vermontvacation.com. In the next episode of the Backcountry podcast, Powder Magazine editors and interns Steve Casimiro, Mike Rogie, Ingrid Backstrom, and myself speculate on the demise of the legendary brand and the future of ski media. The Backcountry podcast is produced by Backcountry Magazine, an imprint of Height of Land Publications in Jeffersonville, Vermont. Lucy Higgins is our editor-in-chief. Our intro music was composed by Alex Paul. Bob Rusnock of Bluestream Voice and Imaging engineered this episode. Additional thanks to Tyler Cohen, Betsy Monero, Mike Lorenz, Robin Earl, Paul Davis, Justin Ryer, Michelle Peoples, Holly Howard, Karen Heward, and John Costello. At Backcountry Magazine, our small staff works hard to bring you stories that are thoughtfully edited, beautifully produced, and thoroughly fact-checked. Please consider supporting our independent journalism with a subscription to the magazine. You can subscribe or check out other swag at our website, backcountrymagazine.com. Use promo code PODCAST for 10% off your entire order. I'm Adam Howard. Until next time, I'll see you in the hills. Thanks for listening.